I was very fortunate to be able to go and show at a trade show in Paris within my first 3 years of being in business, and this was a very good opportunity to experience and meet buyers from overseas. I'd also started doing London Fashion Week, where I'd picked up accounts from overseas. But really my main growth in export started when I first started travelling to overseas markets that I'd identified as perhaps having potential. I was lucky enough to be invited to do a show in Japan about 12 years ago. Now the irony there was we aren't really a product, or we weren't a product at that time that was really right for the Japanese market. Now the Japanese market has changed a lot in the last 12 years, but it's not as it seems from Britain. It's a very, very complicated market. The structure is changing, but it's filled with a lot of different levels of retail and ways of doing business and ways of distributing. So it's actually a very, very complicated market, and one that can be highly lucrative if your product is right and you meet with the right people. So I'd seriously recommend, if you're interested in a particular market, the sooner you can actually get to visit the market, the better, because you will really begin to understand what makes that market work. You sit here and you look at magazines and you do research on the internet, which, 12 years ago the internet was in its infancy, so I had very limited access till I got out there. And then I actually realised from walking around all the stores, we do a collection that's perceived to be predominantly evening wear. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's how I'm perceived, and I'm perceived in most markets of the world. At that time, evening wear in Japan was not a category that really existed. So again, you need to get out there and you need to see where you fit in the market. If you don't fit, could you change the emphasis with what you do to make yourself more relevant? Or is the competition too great? Are you better focusing elsewhere? Following my trip to Japan, I, again, was very lucky to be invited to do shows in Hong Kong, in Singapore, in Malaysia, in South Africa, in South America. So over the years, I've done a lot of trade missions, which have been visits and or shows where I've been invited to go out and participate in a catwalk show and a trade show. And what's great about that is it gives you a launch pad, so you can meet a lot of people in a very short space of time. I think it's important to look first at where you think your strengths and weaknesses are. Talk to people like Gail, and her team, who can give you advice on where they think your product might be relevant. And then when the time's right, try and get out to the market. Speak to people, do your ground research, but nothing beats, I think, visiting a market and really seeing it for what it is.